And here they put the statue of King David, and it upsets some. It's you saw how it's damaged in several places. It's being so here in Jerusalem, even vandalism has very deep roots. It's a really cultural sort of struggle in Judaism. First thing is, every time you're doing any kind of work of art, any statue, it has to be defected in a way, so you won't be imitating the work of God. This is one aspect of it. So they broke his toe, and then they chipped off fixed it, and then they chipped off his nose, and then they broke one of the strings. They put some paint on it. It's vandalism that is rooted in, and then the idea, you won't see those throughout the country. Sculptures of people, especially not in Jerusalem, is something that is strictly, so it's a new sculpture, it's a new sort of donation of this Russian oligarch, and it doesn't sit well with the, again, you know, the big, this is where Mary, we said Mount Zion was the heart of the Christian quarter, of the Christian community in many years. This is where she fell asleep, and then she was brought to burial and lifted up by Jesus at the site we saw over there by Gethsemane. So this is the church of the Domitian.
But in Turkey, they have Mary.
I know.
This is the Arabic part. No, that's right. This is nice. You want some?
Turning here. Praise there, they'll be keep on fighting over the space over there. So he kind of walked away a few steps, and out of consideration prayed out here. And so this is a very important mosque. I'm going to go into the, there was no church here. It was outside the city walls. And this is where he was brought on midday on Friday, carrying the cross all the way from the Antonia. The Antonia is a Roman fortress that the Romans built on the northern side of Temple Mountain. When there is on these pilgrimage holidays, there are tens of thousands of Jews coming to Temple Mountain. And there's always a potential for riots and problems. So the Romans built a fortress, Herod did, to keep an eye on all these Jews up there. And this Passover, Jesus came to Jerusalem, but also Pilate came to Jerusalem. Pilate, the Roman governor, is usually in Caesarea. The most important city in the Roman time, from the Roman perspective, was not Jerusalem. There was nothing here. There was no trade, no culture. Everything was down in Caesarea. We're going to visit Caesarea on Friday. But he came also to Jerusalem because of the holiday. When all these Jews are coming, there's always a potential problems, and he's there. So on Friday morning, Jesus is being brought from where today the St. Peter's Gallicantu Church is on Mount Zion. He's being walked to the Antonia, which is on the northern side of Temple Mountain, where he would meet Pilate for the trial. He's first being beaten, and then the trial takes place. And then he's ended with the cross. He has to carry his own cross through the city streets, very crowded city streets, to step out of the city wall and to get to this area here, which is outside the city walls. There was nothing much built here, probably a quarry of some sort, and it's the shape of a skull. Golgotha in Hebrew is a skull. And this is where he will be crucified around midday. He would be crucified, and towards just before Shabbat, he dies on the cross. You know, the Jews do not bury on Shabbat. So he's being snapped, being brought down from the cross, and his body is being prepared for burial in linen and incense and all that, and he's being brought into a burial cave. And a rich Jewish guy of the elite was preparing for himself, and he sort of gave for this purpose, which was right next to where the Golgotha was. This is Joseph of Arimathea, those who remember. And just before Shabbat, Jesus will be buried in this burial cave. A stone will be rolled on the mouth of the cave, and they will pull back for the Shabbat. On Sunday morning, the women would come back because they didn't prepare the body really properly. They were much in a hurry to finish up before Shabbat, so they're coming back to the incense and all that. They're meeting a strange sort of creature at the entrance is the angel Gabriel, and tells them, why are you looking for him with the dead? He's with the living. And they're rolling the stone from the mouth of the cave, and the cave is empty. And he'll travel the country, he'll roam the country, he'll appear in front of people, he would dine with people, so he's not a ghost. He came back to life, and after 40 days, the ascension would take place up to Mount Olive. So over here, right in front of us, is where the event took place. So being Christian is pretty much to believe that he was the Son of God. He was sent to show us how to live our life. We maybe were not ready for him. And he died on the cross to pay for our sins, and he was resurrected and then was ascended. All this happened out here. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Jews believe that he came back?
no. This is being, what I'm saying is that being Christian is to believe in this.
Yes.
Because, you know, while Judaism and very much so also Islam is a very strict set of rules that you have to follow, Christianity is more about this idea of believing in what happened over here. It comes with it. And when he dies on the cross, it's a humiliation form of, you know, it's a statement by the Romans. The Romans didn't just crucify him. It's a punishment that was reserved for those who raised their hand against the authority. Slaves that sort of attacked their owners, or somebody who raised his hand against the empire. So we had thousands of people being crucified in Jerusalem. Actually, in the Israel Museum now that was reopened, you can find the emblem of a person that was crucified. You see actually the nail going through. So we know that it was a practice that was, together with Jesus, according to tradition, there were two thieves that were crucified. A bad thief that did not recognize Jesus as what he was, a good thief, and they died over here as well. So the Christians were not very well tolerated by the Romans. The Romans actually had better treatment for the Jews than they had for the Romans. For the most part, the Romans sort of had appreciation for everything old. Judaism, being such an ancient tradition and the religion, was tolerated. The problem was that the Jews were keep on rebelling. But the Christians were very seriously, very brutally hunted down by the Romans. And this is going on for about 250 years. From the time of Jesus, maybe more, like 300 years. All the way to the beginning, but it's still gaining more and more, you know, hearts and minds of people from throughout the empire. It's being a huge success in the way it approaches the masses. And this is another very important difference between Christianity and Judaism, where Judaism sees itself as a religion of a nation. Christianity is approaching everybody, and not as a nation, as on an individual basis. It's open for everybody. It took them a while to get there, but then they're approaching everybody, and they're bringing the message to everybody. And it's gaining more and more traction and attention. And then, at the beginning of the 4th century, there's a dramatic shift in the way the Romans treating Christianity. It starts with Constantinus, the Roman emperor, who's going to a battle that he wins against all odds. Just before he goes into this battle, he has this vision of putting the Christian symbol on the shields of his soldiers. He does that and he wins this battle against all odds. And this is the tradition. He sort of decides that he would legitimize Christianity in this hunting down of the Christians stalls. Throughout the 4th century, Christianity is not just to be legitimate, but it's going to take the empire. It's going to be, by the end of the 4th century, it's going to be the religion of the empire. And in the year 324, Helene, the mother of Constantinus, who was a very devoted Christian, coming on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And she built some of the 4 first churches in the country. One of them you're going to visit in this afternoon. The Nativity started off with the church she built there. And she's the one that identifies this place. So it's only about 300 years after the events. People are still pointing to each other, you know, generation after generation. They were very impressed. They knew what, you know, and they were pointing and that. And when she comes here, people are still able to point the place. She is the one that built the first church here. She's also believed to have found the actual cross. The cross was here in her church. all the way to the beginning of the 7th century when it was robbed by the Persians. There was a Persian invasion, they're losing the cross, they're bringing it back a few decades, bringing it back. A few decades later, Islam sweeps the country, not just the country, the entire, world actually. It's something that starts at the year 622 when Muhammad is moving from Mecca to Medina, and by the end of the 7th century, it's a huge empire, from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to Persia. And they're controlling also the land of Israel, and this brings to an end the first period of Christian sovereign power here that started approximately at the visit of Eleni here and ended at the 7th century, and we're getting into a stretch of about 100 years of Muslim rule until the Crusaders would arrive here at the 11th century or the 12th century. And the Crusaders would be in Jerusalem for about 90 years, and then they will be kicked out, and there will be Muslim rule of Jerusalem for about 650 years, from 1187 all the way to 1917, when the British are capturing the country. So it's very important to see the timeline here and who was here and all that. During this time, this church, which is the heart of Christian Jerusalem, is destroyed several times, being rebuilt several times. Natural disasters, fires, earthquakes, invading armies. It's being destroyed and rebuilt so many times that now it's a very complicated sort of complex of different periods and different times and all that. And when, like the entrance is very typically Crusaders period, the pointed arches, the cushions around the arch, the 3 pillars in each side of the entrance. This is not even the original entrance to the Church of Eleni. The Church of Eleni, the entrance was from the Cardinal that stretches all the way to our left, our right, and there was a staircase leading up to a basilica that ended up with a rounded structure that sat over the grave. This was destroyed so many times, nothing of Eleni Church was left, except for maybe a cistern on the back side of the church where there is a Coptic church today. And also the staircase was found. A few years ago, the guy that runs a bakery right on the main street renovated this bakery, knocked down the wall, and they so when we go in there, we're gonna